When the clock struck midnight on August 15, 1947, India awoke to life and freedom. But it also awoke to a monumental task. The economy we inherited was not our own. It was a colonial machine built to serve another nation. For 2 centuries, India's riches had been systematically drained away. We were left with an economy that was stagnant, agricultural, and deeply impoverished. The industrial base was minuscule. The dream of a new India was grand, but the reality was a nation starting from almost nothing. The partition created unimaginable chaos, displacing millions and tearing apart the economic fabric. Imagine a vast country, a continent in itself, with millions tasting freedom for the first time. To steer the economy, India adopted a model of planned development. The Planning Commission was established in 1950. The first 5-year plan, 1951-1956, focused on agriculture, irrigation, and power projects. Projects like the Bhakra Nangal Dam became symbols of this era. The state took control of the commanding heights, the dams, the steel plants, the universities, and the research institutions. These public sector undertakings were meant to build a strong industrial base and operate for the public good, but private enterprise was heavily regulated. Every decision, from setting up a factory to importing a machine, required a license. This became the license Raj. The system caused long delays, inefficiency, and often corruption. Still, there were achievements. The Green Revolution and institutions like the IITs and IUMs laid foundations. For nearly 3 decades, from the 50s to the late 70s, India's economy chugged along at a slow, predictable pace. The average annual growth hovered around 3.5%, the Hindu rate of growth. India protected domestic firms, but countries like South Korea, Taiwan, and Singapore opened up and grew rapidly. India missed a global boom. For the consumer, limited choices. 1 car, a couple of scooters, 1 state-run phone and TV service. Getting a phone line could take years. Prosperity remained distant for millions trapped in poverty. The system aimed for equity but often distributed poverty more than wealth. By the 80s, people in government and young entrepreneurs alike realized change was needed. The nation was simmering with untapped potential. The 80s saw hesitant reforms, but the underlying economic structure remained unchanged. The government had been spending far more than it earned, creating a large fiscal deficit. The Iraqi invasion of Kuwait in 1990 sent oil prices soaring, drastically increasing India's import bill and reducing remittances from the Gulf. Investor confidence collapsed. Foreign lenders called back loans and credit agencies downgraded India. By mid-1991, foreign exchange reserves had plummeted to just over $1 billion, barely enough to cover 3 weeks of imports. In a dramatic move, the government airlifted gold reserves to foreign banks as collateral to secure emergency loans. This national emergency forced leaders to face a harsh truth. The old model had failed. It was a wake-up call, a crucible where the seeds of transformation would be sown, led by Prime Minister P.V. Narasimha Rao and Finance Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh. On July 24, 1991, Dr. Manmohan Singh presented a budget that would change India's economic destiny. The core philosophy moved from a state-dominated, centrally planned economy toward a market-oriented system. The reforms dismantled the complex web of controls, abolishing industrial licensing for most sectors and ending the license Raj. Exceptions remained for defense, hazardous chemicals, and a few strategic sectors. Reformers began disinvestment, selling government stakes, inviting private management, and introducing accountability into PSUs. Previously closed areas opened: airlines, banking, telecom, power. The private sector became a key engine of growth. The reforms integrated India with the global economy. Imports liberalized, tariffs lowered, the rupee devalued to boost exports, and FDI rules relaxed, automatic approval up to 51% in many sectors. India sent a clear message: we are open for business. The 1991 reforms are often summarized by 3 words: liberalization, privatization, globalization. Liberalization freed businesses from bureaucratic dictates, letting market signals guide production, pricing, and innovation. Privatization and globalization brought professional management, capital, technology, and competition, transforming telecom, aviation, banking, and more. Integration with global markets created winners, notably the software industry, and pushed firms to become globally competitive. Together, liberalization, privatization, and globalization reimagined India's economic identity and set a new trajectory. The reforms were felt in daily life. Consumers found choice where scarcity once ruled. Cars, mobile phones, soaps, shampoos, and much more. Long queues for phones are gone. Instant connections and full showrooms are the new normal. Reforms created new opportunities. IT, telecom, financial services, generating millions of well-paying jobs in cities like Bengaluru, Hyderabad, and Pune. Homegrown firms like Infosys, Reliance, and Tata expanded globally, attracting investment and modern management techniques. A confident middle class emerged. Consumption-led growth became an engine of India's transformation. The end of the license Raj unleashed entrepreneurship and startups, a cultural shift from scarcity to aspiration. The numbers tell a powerful story. Growth accelerated from the 3.5% era to sustained 6-8% averages and occasional spikes above 9%. India's GDP rose from around $270 billion in 1991 to over $3.7 trillion by early 2024. According to World Bank data, extreme poverty fell from over 47% in 1991 to around 12% in recent years. FDI, once a trickle in 1991, climbed dramatically. DPIIT reports cumulative inflows of over $900 billion since April 2000. Foreign exchange reserves swelled from a precarious $1 billion in 1991 to over $600 billion today. Telecom, from 5 million connections in 1991 to over 1.2 billion subscribers today, a revolution that enabled digital services. Cheap data and connectivity underpin e-commerce, digital payments, online education and telemedicine, modern pillars of the Indian economy. As of 2025, the 1991 reforms set India on a high-growth path and raised its global standing. But growth has been uneven. Inequality, urban-rural divides, and regions left behind remain major challenges. Job creation, especially in manufacturing, skills for youth, and raising rural incomes are critical next steps. New threats like climate change require green technology, renewable energy, and sustainable agriculture. Reforming education and healthcare, and skilling the youth, will determine whether the demographic dividend becomes a true advantage. We need the same boldness and vision as 1991 leaders to innovate, reform, and build an equitable, strong India. For sources, see on-screen references. Subscribe for more explainers on India's economy.